Well, to discuss this fiscal policy, partner and West Africa tax leader PricewaterhouseCoopers Taiwo Oyedele joins me via Skype. Good to have you join us, Taiwo. Now, let's start off first. Individuals will be required to produce their TIN, that's their tax identification numbers, before they can operate their account, new or existing bank accounts in Nigeria. What do you make of this move, and how much of a disruption do you think this would pose to the normal flow of business activities? We can imagine already that bank ATM cards and some of those who are not compliant will not work.
Yes, let me try and make a simple clarification about exactly what the finance bill says should happen from January 2020. The first thing is, if I read the direct provisions of the finance bill, it's section 30, and it's seeking to amend section 49 of the personal in banking shall require that a person intending to open a bank account for the purposes of its business operation must provide a tax identification number as a precondition for opening such bank account or continued operation of a bank account. So two things. Number one is, this is not intended to cover all personal accounts. It is meant to cover personal accounts that are being used for business purposes. Because come to think about it, if your bank account is for business purposes, why don't you register with the tax authorities? And the second clarification I need to make is that by requesting for tax identification number, it's not the same thing as requesting for tax payment. TIN is just to say that you have registered. You don't have to have paid taxes if you do not have taxable income. And the registration for TIN is free. So this is not as big an issue as it's been interpreted in some quarters. For existing accounts, you'll be given a period of time if you do not have TIN to be able to regularize it. A lot of this can be done online via the Joint Tax Board's website. So you don't need to pay anyone. But I also do agree that government maybe needs to further simplify it. One thing they can do is to allow banks, because it's in the enlightened self-interest of banks to ensure that this works. Government can collaborate with banks to be able to register their customers right from the banking hall, since they already have the facilities to register for BVN. The other issue is maybe government should just easily look at your BVN and say you have been registered. But I think ultimately trying to widen the tax net for everybody who needs to pay tax to be in the tax net is the right thing to do.
Okay, Taiwo, let me now button this time around. Now, do you think we've had enough of sensitization from the part of the FIRS to have all of this clarification done from the part of the banks and from the part of the federal government as well? Do you think we've had enough of clarification? Not so many people are aware of this breakdown of the information.
Yeah, certainly not. Certainly not. I do think that government needs to do a lot more, from the Ministry of Finance to the FIRS to the Joint Tax Board to State Internal Revenue Services. They just need to communicate better with the people and engage. And these are not communications that you do in Abuja and Lagos. We need to connect with our people in villages, in rural areas. So I do agree with you in that sense that a lot needs to. And the time is so close now. We're talking about a couple of weeks from now. So I'm hoping that the authorities are watching and listening, and they'll be able to do the right thing sooner rather than later.
And the average man on the street would also ask, why request for a TIN when we ought to have synchronized data systems? And what's the tally between having a BVN and as an individual to you automatically assigned with a TIN based on your BVN or NIN? These are questions on the minds of so many Nigerians left unattended to.
Yes, and I share those sentiments. We should not have NIN, BVN, tax identification number. They're just all manners of numbers all over the place, which I think are creating more confusions than solution. But I do not think that's a question the fiscal authorities can answer. It has to be done at a much bigger and higher level. And that requires some level of coordination, not only at the federal government level, but also at the sub-national level. And I do think, because before now we didn't even have harmonized tax identification number, but that has happened now. Before, you had to register in Lagos. If you had a business to do in the FCT, you register again. Now, TIN has been harmonized across the country. So we're hoping that very soon as well, all the other forms of identification will all be harmonized so that an individual only just has one number that works for all purposes. That will be very, very important.
And so many economic watchers to also pushing for a grace period as well, expecting that that will be given to allow individuals and business entities to obtain their TIN before the January 2nd, 2020 deadline when the law takes effect. But how long do you think we should have this grace period? Because everyone is just wondering, how long is this guess?
Yes, so the national tax policy, which is what led to the finance bill, is very clear that if you are introducing a new policy, you need to give up to about 90 days. Even though the finance bill has not indicated how much time will be granted, I do think that government needs to give sufficient time so that people are not disrupted in carrying out their daily activities and business operations. So hopefully, if government can start the campaign and the enlightenment on time and collaborate with banks to do the registration and give up to 90 days, I think it will not be a bad thing, and the impact overall should be negligible, if anything negative at all.
And I remember our last conversation, we were talking about the informal sector also being captured within our tax base. We've not seen the FIRS, we've not seen government do enough in that aspect as well. Do you think this initiative will capture the informal sector, or do you think the government, the FIRS and other bodies are just turning a blind side to this sector, which has a whole lot more to offer to our tax base?
Yeah, no, I do think that this would capture a significant percentage of the informal sector, not just because you need the TIN to continue to operate your personal account that you use for business purposes, but also because government has been, in my view, they've taken the right step in the finance bill to exempt small businesses who 20 million naira, 25 million naira or less. So for small businesses who earn 25 million turnover or less in a year, they have now asked them not to bother about registering for VAT, as well as they are being exempted from CIT. So this combination of policies, in my view, should be able to encourage the informal sector to formalize and also to get into the tax net, knowing that they don't have to part with money immediately.
And let's also wrap up conversation slowly now. You earlier touched on passively on ensuring that we have a simplified process. But now to have a seamless process of obtaining and verifying the TIN for individuals, whether you're students, you are employed, unemployed, self-employed, or living in the diaspora, what are your expectations, aggressive approaches to ensure that we have a larger tax base this time around, simplifying the process? What's your expectation this time around, going into 2020?
Yes, I think for the various categories of individuals and persons who need to register for TIN, because really the tax laws, even the Constitution of Nigeria does not define age limits. So even a minor that is earning income will have to register for tax to the extent that they earn taxable income. And it also doesn't mean if you are old or you are retired, if you earn taxable income of the sensitization, and we simplify the process of registration, then it should not be a problem whether you are a student, whether you are a minor, whether you're an adult, whether you're a senior in society. You should be able to register. If you live abroad and you do some form of businesses in Nigeria using your Nigerian account, then and the same way that I think they were able to do BVN, because we have people who live abroad and they still have their bank accounts in Nigeria and they were able to register for BVN. I think the same structure and platform, maybe even in a simplified format, can also be used for people in the diaspora who will need the team to continue to operate their accounts in Nigeria.
Okay, thank you very much for your time. We've been speaking with Taiwo Oyedele. He's a fiscal policy partner and West Africa tax leader with PricewaterhouseCoopers. Thank you very much, Taiwo, for your time. And hopefully the government takes a cue here and there to ensure proper sensitization. Well, it's time to take a quick break. When we come back, we have plenty more stories from the rest of Nigeria, Africa, the international front. We have much more for you.